What if I told you that during World War II, the US military spent millions developing a weapon made of live bats carrying tiny firebombs? And no, this isn't a cartoon. It was a real project that almost changed the course of the war. Today, we read diving into one of the strangest and most dangerous military experiments in American history, Project X-Ray, better known as the Bat Bomb. This forgotten weapon wasn't just a quirky footnote in history books. It was a catastrophic risk that showed how desperate and ethically questionable wartime research could become. By 1942, World War II was raging across the globe. The United States had entered the fight after Pearl Harbor, and the military was looking for any advantage against Japan. Traditional bombing campaigns were proven costly in both money and lives. Japanese cities were largely made of wood and paper, making them extremely vulnerable to fire. The US needed innovative solutions to create maximum destruction with minimum risk to American pilots. That's when a dental surgeon from Pennsylvania named Lytle S. Adams came up with an idea so bizarre it just might work. Adams had just returned from a trip to New Mexico, where he'd been fascinated by the large numbers of bats in caves. He knew that bats can carry a lot of weight relative to their size, and they tend to roost in dark places like attics and eaves of buildings. He proposed using thousands of hibernating bats as tiny bombers. Each bat would carry a small incendiary device, basically a tiny napalm bomb attached with a timer. The plan was to drop these bats over Japanese cities at dawn. As they woke up, they'd fly away and find places to roost in buildings and attics across the city. Then the timers would go off, setting hundreds of small fires simultaneously, creating chaos and destruction. Amazingly, the military actually thought this was a good idea. They gave Adams $2 million, about $30 million in today's money, to develop what they called Project X-Ray. Scientists worked on finding the perfect species of bat. They settled on the Mexican free-tailed bat, which could carry up to 3 times its own weight, and designing tiny incendiary devices that wouldn't weigh them down too much. The devices contained napalm and were set with timers that would ignite after the bats had time to find roosting spots. Testing began in 1943 at a remote airfield in California. They built special containers to hold the bats, which would be dropped from planes. The containers were designed to open at a specific altitude, releasing the bats. Early tests showed promise. The bats could carry the small bombs, and they did indeed tend to roost in buildings when released. In one test, the bats successfully started fires in a mock-up Japanese village that had been built specifically for the experiment, but things quickly went wrong. In one test, the bats escaped early and set fire to the testing facility, causing significant damage. In another, some bats simply flew back to the base instead of dispersing to the target area. The project faced numerous technical challenges, including how to keep the bats hibernating during transport, how to ensure they dispersed properly, and how to guarantee the timers would work correctly. But more importantly, it raised serious ethical questions about using live animals as weapons of war. Was it acceptable to essentially turn animals into suicide bombers? The turning point came in 1944. By then, the Manhattan Project was well underway, and military leaders saw more potential in atomic weapons than bat bombs. During a final demonstration, the bat bomb worked as intended, starting numerous small fires across a mock-up Japanese village. The project had proven technically feasible, but it was too little, too late. The military was now fully invested in the atomic bomb, which promised far more destruction with a single weapon. Additionally, there were growing concerns about the ethical implications of using bats as weapons. The project was canceled, and most records were classified or destroyed. It wasn't just a technical failure, it was a recognition that the weapon was uncontrollable and potentially a war crime. Using animals as suicide bombers raised serious ethical issues that even in wartime, the US military wasn't willing to cross. Project X-Ray represents a dark chapter in military innovation. It shows how during times of crisis, even democratic societies can pursue dangerous and ethically dubious ideas in the name of national security. Bat bomb wasn't just a quirky experiment. It was a symptom of a research culture that valued results over morality, and that was willing to consider almost anything in the pursuit of victory. Project X-Ray, the bat bomb, remains one of World War II's strangest and most disturbing weapons. It began as an innovative solution to a military problem, but quickly revealed itself as an unethical and uncontrollable method of warfare. The project's cancellation wasn't just about practicality. It was a rare moment where ethical considerations won out over military necessity. Today, the bat bomb serves as a reminder that not all innovation is good innovation, and that even in times of war, there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. is a forgotten piece of history that tells us a lot about the pressures and moral compromises of wartime research. The story of Project X-ray isn't just about bats and bombs. It's about the ethical boundaries of scientific research and the moral choices nations make when their survival is at stake. If you found this piece of forgotten history interesting, hit that subscribe button for more stories about military secrets and strange experiments.